Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 Episode 9, Terrarium. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So I have to start with a spoiler warning for Strange New Worlds up to Season 3 Episode 9. If you have not seen this episode, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, I was very glad that this isn't yet another gimmick comedy episode, that we've had 3 of them this season, and I'm getting sick of it. And so at least this was a more dramatic episode, which I was very happy about, but that being said, it was overflowing with Star Trek cliches, with cliches that have been done before a lot in Star Trek. First and foremost, the shuttlecraft crash cliche, which is way overdone throughout Star Trek. And then there's the, we have to get these vaccines to other planets so we're on a strict timetable cliche, which usually goes, a lot of times goes hand in hand with the shuttlecraft crash cliche. And then there's also the make friends with your enemy who's also stranded on the planet cliche that they done in episodes like Enemy in Next Generation and Dawn in Enterprise. And to top it all off, the episode ends with a bit of shameless fan service. And here's the thing, despite all that, I actually like this episode. That is until the ending ruined it, but I still kind of like this episode even with the ending. Because, first of all, I've been saying forever that we need an Ortegas episode. And there was that one episode earlier this season where she kind of disobeyed number 1, but that wasn't an Ortegas episode. She had a storyline. But this is a full-on Ortegas episode, and I think it's a good one. I think the actress did a good job. I think this fleshed out the character beyond simply, I fly this ship, which was her only character traits in the first 2 seasons. So they did develop her character more this season overall with this story arc of dealing with her PTSD by being attacked by the Gorn in the first episode of the season. And here she has to confront that trauma head on. And also, the other thing I really, really appreciate about this episode is that this episode does what Akiva Goldsman said he wouldn't do, and I'm glad it does, and that's humanize the Gorn. Or, I don't know if humanize is the right word, but it makes them more complex and not just evil monsters. And, you know, in interviews, Akiva Goldsman said something to the effect of, oh no, the Gorn aren't redeemable, they're just evil monsters. And I'm like, no, but that's missing the whole point of Star Trek. It's missing the whole point of Arena, the episode where the fucking Gorn first appeared. Like, it's not in the spirit of Star Trek. And the spirit of Star Trek is like, no one's just flat out evil, except for maybe Gul Dukat. But in general, like, no entire alien species is just, sometimes you just need to communicate. Sometimes it's a misunderstanding, like with the Xindi. I mean, this is a classic Star Trek thing. So I do love that we meet a Gorn who is not like just flat out evil, doesn't just want to flat out eat human beings. The Metron at the end of the episode explained that that she was lonely, and that's why she looked after Ortegas, and I guess that does track, and that does make sense. It is interesting that the Gorn knows English, but Ortegas had to use a thing that just said agree or disagree. I do wonder, like, I was wondering about the Universal Translator because there's different lore about the Universal Translator that's all convenient to the plot, and I don't know about the 23rd century, might be different. But D Space Nine suggested that the Universal Translator was an implant inside one's head. Now, sometimes it was like you had to have a communicator, but then the other episodes they forget about this and they lose their communicator, yet they can still have the Universal Translator. So, I mean, the honest thing is that the Universal Translator is just a, convenient plot device to explain why everyone's speaking English. That's all it ever was. And so it always functions the way the script of the week just happens to require it to function. So this episode's no different in that regard. And yeah, so that plot with Ortegas and the Gorn did remind me a lot of Enemy or Dawn, but in both those cases it was the alien who was hostile, and it was their Starfleet officer who had to bridge the gap and show goodwill. In this case, it was the opposite. It was Ortegas who was hostile. It was the Gorn who had to bridge the gap and show goodwill. So at least they flipped that cliche on its head, and I did appreciate that a lot. And I don't know, like the storyline with, as I said, I wasn't a big fan of the Enterprise storyline with, number one constantly being like, oh, those vaccines, we need to get those vaccines. Oh yeah, and by the way, they name dropped Decker and the Constellation, which is from the episode Doomsday Machine. But if I remember correctly, they said Captain Decker, not Commodore Decker. So maybe this is before he got promoted. But here's my question: what's stopping Commodore Decker from going to them? Like, why don't they travel towards the Enterprise? And maybe it would take them longer to get there, but still, it's like it's just a ticking clock excuse. Like, oh, the vaccines, and like, I don't know. It's like, it just felt contrived to me, that whole storyline and the whole thing about Uhura, like, like being desperate to save Ortegas and sort of fudging the facts or whatever. That's fine. Like, it was okay, I guess. Nothing really it's just more cliche Star Trek stuff, really, but it's fine. So I did like, though, the Ortegas building a friendship with the Gorn. I think it started out like very fast, like it did. All of a sudden, Ortegas trusted the Gorn, but I think from there, though, it did make sense and develop, and I think they had camaraderie, and I think it was a very, very good character story for her. That she, because of the trauma she suffered earlier this season, and it was a way for her to sort of overcome that. And it dragged on a little bit, but I think overall I did like it. But then there's the ending. I'm sorry, like Lon just beaming down and killing the Gorn. It felt very contrived to me. Not that like La'an wouldn't want to kill Gorn, of course she would, but my major issue is because this is what I was thinking when I was watching it. As soon as Ortegas like came out of the thing, she should have been like, wait, she's with me. But instead, Ortegas like said something else and whatever, and I was like, you idiot! They're gonna think that the Gorn is the enemy. And the fact, I don't know. I think they established earlier that the stun doesn't work on the Gorn, so they would that's why they would shoot, on have it on kill. But still, I don't know. It reminds me of the Vengeance Factor episode when Riker vaporizes the Yuta when he didn't have to, and it seemed like a little bit of that situation here. Like, really, you're just gonna like kill it immediately? I don't know. Like, I get La'an's experience with the Gorn. Would definitely have her have that reaction, but I don't know. It still seemed very plot contrivancy to me, especially how Ortega should have like tried a hell of a lot harder. She should have known that would be the reaction. Plus, like, why would they're beaming down to rescue Ortegas? So why would they beam down with like these phaser rifles like at the ready? As soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh yeah, they're probably gonna kill the Gorn because, but why the fuck? Like, they're on a rescue mission. Sure, they'd bring phasers, but without phaser rifles like at the ready, like they're going into battle or some shit. Like, I don't know. I was just bothered by that whole ending. I found it kind of ruined the episode a little bit to me. Like, I would have liked this episode so much better if they didn't kill the Gorn and instead brought her on the ship and just dropped her off of some planet or some shit. Like, don't imply he's staying on the Enterprise, of course not, but just say, oh, we'll drop you off at some random planet or whatever. But I suppose the writers might have been worried that would break canon. But first of all, I don't know. Strange New Worlds breaks canon a lot. Not that I'm complaining. I don't really mind all that much. But, yeah, I mean, and I don't think it would really break canon all that much. Like, because, sure, because they already broke canon by the fact that Starfleet knows who the Gorn are. Having them like pick up a passenger and drop her off somewhere, it's like, I guess you could say that would, because Kirk would have not been as hostile towards the Gorn, but I don't think that's the case because the Gorn in the arena just destroyed an entire Federation colony. I don't think because of, Captain Pike years ago picked up a Gorn passenger very briefly and dropped her off somewhere would make him less hostile towards a ship that just destroyed a Federation colony. So I don't think it would have broken canon. I think it would have been fine. I think it would have been a much better ending. And I suppose like the ending they did go with kind of had a, made Ortegas kind of reflect more on her experience because she's like, the Gorn was my friend and La'an's also my friend, and I don't really know what to do with that or whatever. I would have, and I hope since this show is a little bit serialized, that I hope they do touch on this again. Like, I wanted to get more of the crew's reaction to the fact that the Gorn saved her life and was being her friend, because that's like a huge revelation. Because to this point they just think they're monsters. I don't know. I wanted to see more on that, and quite frankly, I think it would have been a much better story if they actually interacted with the Gorn. If she survived and they dropped her off the planet, I think it would have been a much better episode. I think that ending kind of pissed me off. And speaking of the ending pissing me off, the Metrons really not as bad as that bullshit that Discovery did with the Guardian of Forever, which was such blatant fan service. This is still blatant fan service, though. It's maybe not as bad, but it's still bad. Like, they're really gonna do the Metrons again doing this bullshit, and very conveniently are gonna make you forget everything like they did with C-3PO at the end of Revenge of the Sith in order to it to match the canon, which is make you forget, so that way no one knows who the Metrons were. I would have been okay if the Metrons brought the Gorn back to life. But you never should have killed him. But anyway, yeah. I don't know, like the Metrons are like, we want to see if you could get over, your trauma, and if you can make friends with an enemy, but then your other, crewmates' reaction to seeing the Gorn tells me that humanity still has a long way to go. You're still not ready. Blah blah blue blue blue. I never liked the Metrons in the first place. I just talked about this in my review for Arena. Like, they're just arrogant pricks. Like, oh, you guys are hostile, so we're going to make you fight to the death. I'm like, how the fuck are you any better? And this whole thing with, like, oh, we're going to put you in this situation, strand you on the planet, and have it so you guys kill each other, but we're so much more evolved than you. Like, fuck off. Like, it's just like fan service too. It was totally unnecessary to have the Metron. I just think that's just look at the Metrons. Remember them from TOS. Anyway, my rating for Terrarium out of 10. You know what? I'm going to be generous. Maybe in the future I will not be so generous, but I'll give this episode a 7. Very good, even though it kind of pissed me off. The ending pissed me off, and it was full of Trek cliches. I still think it's a damn good Ortegas episode, and I do like the friendship that they build with the Gorn and how that changed her perception of the Gorn. I wish that this would have shown the whole crew realizing, having their perception of the Gorn changed, and not just her. Like, I wish the episode touched on that more, but at least we got that, and we got that good character story for her. And again, I am very pleased that they changed course on the Gorn and actually showed them being, showed their perspective and show that they're just not evil monsters. I love that they did that, and I do wonder if they did make this episode in response to a lot of the negative feedback that they were getting, because there was a lot of Star Trek fans who were like rightfully pointing out that having the Gorn be evil monsters goes against what Star Trek is all about, and also goes against the whole point of the episode where the Gorn actually appeared in the original series. So I do like that a lot, and it was a good character episode for Ortegas. But yeah, so that's why I'm going to be so generous and give it a 7, even though it practically ruined the whole episode with that ending, and that it was full of all those, oh, we gotta get these vaccines. These cliches that Trek does all of the fucking time. But I'm feeling generous because I did kind of enjoy that episode, so I will give it a 7 out of 10. So that's it for my review of Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 9. So we shall see. Next week is the big finale, which, as I said, at this point can't really save the season. I mean, it's not like the season's like one of the worst seasons ever. I wouldn't put it down with like first 2 seasons of Enterprise or any season of Picard, but it is definitely easily the worst season of Strange New Worlds so far, and it doesn't matter how good the finale is. The finale could be one of the best Star Trek episodes ever. Still gonna be the weakest season of Strange New Worlds. But, as I said, it's like probably still, I don't know, it still could be better than a lot of other seasons of Modern Trek, like some seasons of Picard and Discovery, but still, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see for the finale. So be sure to join me next week as I cover the finale, and you can check out my channel as I continue to cover Star Trek one episode at a time, currently covering Deep Space Nine Season 4 and Voyager Season 2, which you can check out. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that, and thanks a lot for watching.